Under the star's mantle stretches a mountain range where a baby's cries echo in the night. This land belongs to a brave hunter, whose first instinct upon hearing these cries is to pick up his axe. Thinking it might be a prowling weasel, he is sure that those small animals have made a big mistake by approaching a hunter's hut. He follows the sound of crying around his house, and, arriving at the stable, finds no one there except his horses. For a moment, he wonders if he's hallucinating. After all, since he and his wife found out that they could not have children, he has been hearing children's voices. But it wasn't a hallucination. There in the meadow, there is a baby. He quickly picks it up, and when he brings it closer, he can feel its heartbeat. At that moment, his wife arrives, surprised to see him holding a child. It is then that they mutually agree that this child will be theirs. There is a famous legend about a magician who, with just a gesture of his hands, could summon a gust of wind. That made the clouds gather over him. Soon the rain was falling from the heavens, quenching the thirsty earth and making it shine with life. The villagers were rejoicing, and their songs filled the air as the magician not only brought the rain, but also protected the city from threats beyond its borders. Through his mystical powers, peace and prosperity flourished, and hunger and thirst were eradicated. However, the magician did not rest. Tirelessly, he followed his research, always seeking to improve people's lives. His feats were so extraordinary that he was called the well-educated magician, and his story became a legend cherished by everyone. Chironi Aryan, the boy who was once found in the stable, grew up reading this story. Now, at the age of 12, Chironi often immerses himself in books, captivated by the magic that is in their pages. His father, Vincent Aaron, now 40, never tires of watching his son read. For Vincent, his son's curiosity and enthusiasm are infinitely endearing. Today, after finishing his job of chopping firewood, Vincent affectionately turns to his son before signaling that it's time to go home. As they walk through the forest, Chironi looks at his father and asks him about magic, how it works, and if he could ever learn to use it. The humble hunter, who knows little beyond the house, responds in his simple and sincere way. Meanwhile, some of Chironi's classmates see him with his father and wonder why Chironi is always so interested in accompanying his father or reading books, even when they invite him to play. He refuses. They begin to doubt that Chironi understands the books he reads, thinking that they are too advanced for him. Later, when they see Chironi walking next to Vincent, some of the children begin to think that he is not really their father. One of the mothers tells her children that Vincent does not own Chironi, claiming that he was found somewhere when he was still a baby. Meanwhile, while the children are talking, Vincent hears them. He gets angry inside, but he doesn't confront the boys. Instead, he clings to his belief that he is Chironi's father, no matter what. Determined to make Chironi happy, Vincent decides to take him to the city the next day to get the fruits he wants. As a reward for helping him that day, Chironi feels happy and looks forward to going to the market, although Vincent quietly wishes he could do more for him. However, Chironi is still desperate to learn about magic. The next day, they head to the city. As in the kingdom of Toria, Chironi marvels at the beautiful view of the city. When they arrive at a store, Vincent asks Chironi to stay with a grandfather he knows while he runs some errands. He warns Chironi not to stray away and to avoid the nobles. Vincent quickly leaves, leaving Chironi waiting while he helps Grandpa a little. Chironi takes the opportunity to ask him about magic. At first, the old man does not understand, so Chironi repeats himself. The man then directs him to a bookstore in front of his store, where he can find books about magic. Excited, Chironi quickly heads to the bookstore. As he enters and is about to take a book, someone yells at him and tells him not to touch anything. The bookseller tells him that his hands are too dirty to handle the books. Chironi asks if he can at least read one, but is again denied. The bookseller explains that the books are very expensive and are intended only for the nobles. Disheartened, Chironi leaves the store, and then notices some books piled up in a corner of the floor. Recognizing the place, he realizes that it could be where his father gets the books he reads to him. However, note one detail: the nobles who visit the bookstore not only get the books they want, but are also treated with a lot of respect. This makes Chironi wonder why the nobles receive such privileges while he is excluded. Remembering her father's warning about avoiding the nobles, she begins to question what could be wrong. As Aroni prepares to leave, suddenly the guards catch him. They demand to know how he managed to get into the library enclosure, which is reserved only for nobles. Saroni explains that his father is nearby, but the guards don't believe him. They assume he is an orphan and decide to arrest him. Before they can hold him properly, Chironi deftly escapes. When the guards realize what has happened, they find only his jacket. Chironi has already hidden behind some flowers near a building. From his hiding place, Chironi overhears some children discussing magic. They're asking someone to explain what magic is. At first, the person gives a vague explanation, of which Chironi already knows most from his readings. Then the person says something that captures the attention of the magic has to do with perception. At that moment, Chironi feels that he has found an answer that he had been looking for. The person continues, explaining that perception is sharper than knowledge and faster than skill. He adds that with a little cultivation, anyone who has enough perception can become a magician. While Chironi listens intently to the conversation inside the enclosure, he suddenly hears the voice of an old man, suggesting that he climb the wall if he wants to listen better. Chironi is surprised at first, as it seems the old man knows what he is thinking. He doesn't know what to do, but he considers whether to follow the advice or leave. Finally, he decides to climb the wall, feeling that not doing so would be a regret that he would carry for the rest of his life. So he climbs up to the top of the wall and sees a group of children gathered around an old man sitting under a tree. The old man notices him immediately and, to Chiron's surprise, invites him to come down and join the conversation. The old man introduces himself as Alphys Miri, the director of the Law School of Magic and a level 4 magician. Encouraged by Alphys' warm invitation, Chironi prepares to climb down from the wall and join the group. Chironi enters the grounds of the academy and sees a group of children his age sitting under a huge tree, with the old man, who is the principal. As Chironi approaches, the children quickly try to reject him, insisting that he leave because he is not a noble. However, Director Alphys Miri intervenes, asking Chironi to come forward and share why he climbed the wall. Chironi sincerely explains that he wants to see magic, admitting that he has only read about it in books, but has never seen it in real life. The children tease, accusing him of lying, but Chironi begs the principal to demonstrate the magic. Alphys accepts, saying that he will summon the wind for Chironi. The director activates the magic of the wind, making the children and Chironi levitate in the air. Chironi is amazed by the experience, his eyes wide open, full of wonder, as he feels the magic firsthand. After descending, Chironi, still full of curiosity, asks the director what magic really is. The frankness and sincerity of Chiron's question surprise Alphys, which leads him to explain. Alphys tells Chironi that magic is an act that breaks the general laws of the world. It is the mental application of exploring and discovering the hidden truths in phenomena. Saren listens intently, then thoughtfully points out something she has noticed in the books she has read. He mentions that many great thinkers were persecuted for their unconventional ideas, only for those ideas to be later accepted as universal truths. He wonders aloud whether the essence of the truth is already hidden within such anomalies. This observation impresses the director, but also leaves him curious about Chiron's perspective. When Chironi anxiously asks how magic can be learned, Alphys hesitates. He is not sure that Chironi, being a peasant, will be able to master magic. To demonstrate the required skill, he asks one of the noble students to enter the spiritual zone. The student concentrates deeply, entering an intensely sensitive mental state, and successfully guesses the number of coins hidden in the closed hand of the director. Chironi is amazed by the accuracy of the student's divination. The director explains that when a magician is completely focused, he becomes so attuned to his surroundings that he can perceive things beyond the ordinary. The spiritual zone is a state of heightened sensitivity where the mind can influence and control the phenomena around it. Chironi feels confident in his ability to achieve what the other student demonstrated. The director, observing his determination, advises him to find a quiet place to practice, emphasizing the importance of first finding yourself and then erasing yourself. Although the concept is abstract and challenging, it awakens the wrong curiosity and determination. The director knows that although anyone can try to enter the spiritual zone, only a select few have the ability to truly master it. Encouraged by his enthusiasm, the director allows Chironi to try to enter the spiritual zone immediately. Chironi closes his eyes and concentrates deeply, with his mind focused on the task. As he begins to understand the essence of the practice, his actions seem uncertain and unpolished to those who observe him. The noble students dismiss his efforts as fruitless, and the principal, although intrigued, seems indifferent on the outside. However, Chiron's persistence does not go unnoticed, and the director quietly recognizes that with continuous effort, Chironi could develop an increased sensitivity to the world around him. After leaving with the students, the principal reflects on Chiron's innate potential. He acknowledges that Chironi exhibits a natural aptitude for magic, one that might have flourished had he been raised in a noble family from an early age. This thought persists in the director's mind as he considers the possibility that Chiron's talents may exceed expectations, despite his humble origins. Alone on the grounds of the academy, Chironi processes what he has learned, determined to improve, and leaves the academy, jumping over the wall once again. Now, completely immersed in the spiritual zone, Chironi experiences a deep sense of connection with everything around him. As his understanding deepens, he feels as if he has become one with the world itself, an overwhelming sense of limitlessness running through him. With this new awareness, he runs home eager to explore the possibilities of this power, but as he is rapidly advancing, he accidentally collides with someone and falls to the ground. He apologizes immediately, but the people he has bumped into are not ordinary passers-by. They are gangsters, and their tempers flare up with fury. They begin to assault him, offended by the unintentional collision. In the middle of the altercation, a noble girl arrives and inquires about the commotion. The gangsters explain that they are simply teaching the peasant a lesson. Chironi tries to explain himself, but his words are ignored as the gangsters continue to beat him up. Noble girl, however, intervenes, urging them to stop and warning that Chironi could be seriously injured or even killed. While he tries to take control of the situation, the gangsters, contemptuous towards his intervention, keep discussing what to do next. One of them mentions that they could sell Chironi as a slave, reasoning that no one would care about a peasant, and that they would have no problems because of it. The girl, not perplexed by his cruelty, suggests that Chironi be examined first. However, the gangsters misinterpret his words, assuming that he wants Chironi to undress. At that moment, something inside Chironi breaks. The humiliation, fear, and helplessness he has felt overflow into a single overwhelming emotion. In an instant, time stops. Confused, he wonders what's going on as he stays frozen. Memories of the director's wind magic demonstration flood his mind. Chironi realizes that, unintentionally, he has provoked a magical response. Just like the magic of the wind that the director had shown, suddenly, time moves again, and the gangsters no longer control the situation. Without warning, everyone begins to levitate from the ground, suspended by an invisible force. In an instant, they fall back to earth with tremendous force, their bones breaking from the impact, leaving them severely injured and incapacitated. Noble girl, surprised by the demonstration of power, approaches Chironi. His curiosity is aroused, and he asks him where he learned such magic, commenting that he is just a peasant, and that such abilities are unheard of in someone like him. However, before Chironi can respond, a crowd attracted by the noise and uproar begins to gather. Realizing the danger of staying longer, noble girl quickly retreats, disappearing into the crowd. Chironi, feeling the weight of the cold world around him, does the same and runs away. As he moves through the streets, Chironi can't shake the feeling that the world is distant and indifferent. In the house of Karas, known for its first-class nobility, the master of the house pulls out faces, is reading the newspaper. He notices that his daughter, the girl from before, enters the room. He looks up from the newspaper and asks her why she has returned earlier than expected. She indifferently replies that she has learned everything she needed to know and that the class is no longer fun. With a change in his attitude, He then asks his father if he has any connection with the magic school, expressing interest in meeting them. Vincent looks around, anxious about Chironi, his concern growing when his wife informs him that Chironi has gone to the logging area to cut wood despite the snow still falling. Vincent decides to look for him, worried about the severe weather. As he goes out, he remembers the day he took Chironi to town last spring. That day Chironi almost got lost, and Vincent wonders what has really happened to the boy since then. In the middle of the snow-covered forest, Chironi stands in front of one of the trees, remembering how he had managed to use magic that day, but has not been able to replicate it since, as it was a subconscious act. Although he has not managed to do magic again, he can still enter the spiritual zone. In this elevated state, he perceives everything around him with sharpened clarity. His eyes land on a specific spot on the tree, where the light seems to shine the brightest, and he instinctively strikes the tree with his axe. The tree shatters into splinters with the force of the blow, and Chironi realizes that he has just knocked it down with a single blow. Unbeknownst to Chironi, Vincent has been quietly watching from behind a tree, startled by what appears to be lightning. Vincent watches intently as Chironi continues cutting, oblivious to his father's presence. Chironi, lost in his own thoughts, feels a deep need for knowledge and decides to repeat his actions every day. Determined to prepare for the moment when the opportunity to understand skills will arise again, 3 years have passed, and he has grown both in ability and in understanding of his capabilities. Now, proficient in entering the spiritual zone, he can connect with nature during his meditative sessions, feeling as if he has become one with the world itself. With the wooden logs in hand, he heads home, eager to get back to the familiar routine. However, upon arriving at his house, Chironi notices an unusual scene. A luxurious wagon pulled by white horses parked outside. Something is different, and his curiosity grows as he enters. Inside, his parents introduce him to a visitor, a well-dressed butler of the house or a noble family of the second class. His name was, and he has come to talk to Chironi after hearing about his ability to read. Chironi, confused, wonders why a servant from a noble family would be interested in him, especially since the O house was previously known for its high status. Taran explains that he has a job offer for Chironi, an opportunity to work for the O house during the relocation of their large library. This library, one of the largest in the region, contains almost 10,000 books, many of which must remain strictly within the grounds of the house. The process will take 2 years, with Chironi and Taran handling the tidying, while the heavy lifting will be done by the porters. Chironi, surprised, realizes that this must mean that the Ont house possesses great knowledge, particularly an advanced knowledge of magic, which would be invaluable to him. But while Taran is talking, Chironi feels a strange tension, especially when the Mayomo mentions that the only people who know about the relocation of the library are his family. If even a single book leaves the grounds, or if rumors spread about missing books, it could mean serious consequences, and your family's lives would be at risk. Vincent, Chironi's father, listens to the conversation with a calm understanding. Taran had initially thought that Vincent had sold Chironi for this job in exchange for money. Vincent denies this, insisting that he simply wants to give Chironi the opportunity to achieve his dream. Taran had told Vincent that Chironi should be able to read the house books or ant, which Vincent believed would help him pursue his aspirations. However, Tamarin dismisses this idea, pointing out that Ronan won't be able to read all the time, and that they won't be able to keep an eye on him all day. Frustration grows in the room as Tamarin impresses Vincent, questioning if he had lied to Chironi about his future all this time. Vincent, deeply troubled by the situation, reflects on his role in Chironi's life. She feels a twinge of guilt knowing that Chironi is not her biological son, but still recognizing the boy's potential. Vincent had always believed that Chironi must have noble blood. That's why he had asked Taran to take him in, simply to give Chironi the opportunity to access the knowledge of the library. He had never cared about money before, but the reality of the situation is beginning to weigh heavily on him. In a moment of frustration, Vincent asks Tamarin to leave his house, realizing that he made a mistake by involving his son in this dangerous situation. As Taran prepares to leave, Chironi stops him, surprising both Taran and his parents with a calm determination. Chironi agrees to take the job offered by the own house. Tamarin, although relieved, warns Chironi again, emphasizing the serious consequences, and even the slightest rumor will spread. He warns her that Chiron's life would end if something went wrong. Chironi, fully understanding what is at stake, assures him that he will be cautious and will not hold a grudge, even if things take a wrong turn. Tamarin recognizes his determination and tells him that he will come for him in a week. He warns her that once she steps on the grounds of the house or end, there will be no turning back until the work has been completed. With that, Taran says goodbye. A deeply worried Vincent watches Taran's departure, fearful that Chironi is walking towards something dangerous. She expresses her fears to Chironi, suggesting that Tara is not looking for a worker, but a sacrifice. Vincent offers to help Chironi out of the deal, but Chironi reassures him, grateful, thanking his father for the greatest gift he could have received, his unconditional support. Touched, Vincent hugs him tightly, promising that he and his mother will always be there for him, no matter what. A week later, Saren is ready to leave, although he feels a twinge of hesitation when leaving his parents. He knows this is an opportunity he can't pass up. He is about to enter a world full of powerful people, and although he doesn't know if he will survive the next 2 years, he feels a sense of purpose surging within him. The Owen House is located in Christoria, known for producing warriors of great strength and renown. The men sent to escort Chironi explained to him that the founder of the Owen House was a level 3 general, and the current master of the house, the servant O, is a level 4 knight. They explain that Servio controls the military force of the city, a powerful figure with enormous influence. When Chironi arrives at the great mansion of the Owen House, he is impressed by the grandiosity of everything. The property, a symbol of second-class nobility, stands before him with its imposing structure and intricate design, overwhelming him. It is clear that Chironi has entered an area far beyond his previous life. The utility rooms and offices where Chironi will stay are located in a separate part of the mansion. As he is escorted to his new living space, Chironi can't help but feel both awe and apprehension. The next day, Chironi is taken by Tamarin to the great library, a vast room filled with shelves crammed with books. Tamarin explains to him the importance of the task ahead of him. All the books must be relocated to the new library, and Chironi will be in charge of sorting them. Tamarin hands Chironi a list of books to sort each week, explaining that his task is to gather the books according to the list, making sure they are properly categorized. His working hours will be from 9 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, with the evenings off. However, Taran warns him that Ronan will not be able to leave the grounds during working hours, nor will he be able to enter the main mansion unless ordered to do so directly. The butlers below will inform you of the additional rules. Chironi will start his duties the next day. The next morning, Chironi gets to work. He dresses appropriately and soon realizes why one person is assigned to sort all the books. It is important that the rating system remains consistent. As he works, Chironi comes to understand that all knowledge is interconnected and that the common thread that unites everything is history. He soon notices that of the 10,000 books in the library, 850 are about history. Determined to learn everything, Chironi decides that he will dedicate the next 2 years to reading these books. Because if he really wants to become a magician, this is his path. While working, Chironi immerses himself in the history books, but quickly closes one when he hears footsteps approaching. He does not want Tamarin to find out that he is reading outside of his assigned task. However, Tamura notes Chironi's impressive ability to classify books. He also notes that Chironi tends to work late at night. Tamarin advises him not to get too exhausted, as there is still a long way to go. As he approaches Chironi, Tamarin points out to him that not only the servants enter the library, but also the master of the house and his children. He warns Chironi that he must be careful with his appearance and his actions, as he must maintain the dignity of the Owen household at all times. He also suggests that she take care of her long hair, hinting that she should be more presentable. With one last look, Tamarin leaves, leaving Chironi to ponder the advice. Later, Cerrone is in the library again, absorbed in the history books. He begins to realize how vast just the history of Toria is. There is so much to learn. Overwhelmed, he wonders how he's supposed to study everything else too. He concludes that he should focus on understanding at least a part of each historical event and moving on, rather than getting stuck in the details. As he continues to read, exhaustion begins to take its toll on him, and Cerrone falls asleep, his head resting on the books. Tamarin, upon entering the library later, finds Cerrone dozing at his desk. He sighs, thinking that Cerrone is foolishly trying to tackle everything at once, and that, with that pace, he'll be stuck on one book for weeks. Feeling somewhat frustrated with Cerrone's lofty dreams, Tamarin shakes his head and leaves, allowing Cerrone to continue his rest. Cerrone is located behind the reception desk of the Great Library, with his hands busy cataloging and classifying books, as always. He attends to any nobleman who comes to borrow books, although the behavior of the nobles no longer surprises him. Despite knowing the importance of his work, guiding the books and maintaining the library catalog, it still frustrates him that many nobles order books without returning them on time. They come back for more, holding the borrowed books as if they were entitled to them indefinitely. However, Cerrone maintains his composure, concentrating on maintaining his devotion to work, even if that means dealing with the nobles' disdain for rules. It's been more than 3 months since Cerrone started working at the own house, and by that time the behavior of the nobles no longer affects him. What does surprise him is how much he has advanced in his studies. He has read more than 80 books during his time there, and although he is still far from his goal of reading 1,000, he acquires valuable knowledge every day. However, he knows that not all scholars have the potential to become magicians, especially those who cannot access the spiritual realm. Fortunately for Cerrone, his ability to enter the spiritual realm gives him an advantage that sets him apart from most scholars, making him more efficient and capable as a magician. This realization further boosts his dedication to his work. One day, while attending to the usual flow of nobles entering the library, Cerrone notices a commotion. A young nobleman, Leo, rushes into the library, looking anxious and somewhat disheveled. Instinctively observing Leo's hurried movements, Cerrone quickly perceives that something is not right. Her intuition tells her that someone powerful is chasing Leo. As he hurriedly enters the library, an urgency is noticeable in his demeanor. He quickly approaches Cerrone, his face showing a mixture of frustration and despair, and without saying much, urges him to lie for him. If anyone asks about his presence, Leo hides under one of the bookshelves, trying to avoid detection. Soon after, the door slams open, and Master Kate enters, filling the room with his imposing presence. He demands to know where Leo is. Without hesitation, Cerrone points to Leo's hiding place. Despite the danger of betraying him, Cerrone understands the rules of noble culture. When serving someone of higher rank, such as Master Kate, there is no room for disobedience. Cerrone helps drag Leo out of the library, and, as he is being taken out, Leo throws a vengeful promise at Cerrone. He swears that, for exposing him, Cerrone will regret it. Cerrone, however, stands firm in his decision, understanding that he had no other choice. The noble hierarchy demands obedience from those in superior positions, and Cerrone's status as a servant leaves him no room to challenge the master. Leo is taken away, and rumors circulate that he is dragged to the mountains, never to return. For months, the whole incident seems to fade away, but the memory lingers in Cerrone's mind. Knowing that Leo's anger is not easily forgotten, months pass, and Cerrone continues to focus on his work, his studies, and his duties at the library. But one day, while he is absorbed in his books, the door slams open with force. To her surprise, it's Leo, looking alive, but with eyes full of fierce determination. Leo approaches Cerrone, his presence charged with intention, and it is clear that he has come for one thing only: revenge. Despite the months of intense training Leo must have gone through, Cerrone can still see the same fire in his eyes. Leo's resolve has not dimmed, and now Cerrone finds himself face to face with the consequences of his previous actions. He tries to explain his reasons, but Leo's anger is palpable, and Cerrone feels the blow of being called a coward. Leo accuses Chironi of betraying him out of fear, stating that his actions were not justified. Chironi maintains his position, although the words sink in. He justifies his actions by explaining that he only exposed Leo because it had the consequences of angering Master Kate. But Leo is not interested in explanations. It demands a duel, a way to settle accounts between them. He presents a wooden sword and declares that he will show Chironi how powerful he is. Although Chironi hesitates, he accepts, knowing that there is no other way to resolve the tension between them. He is not a swordsman, and Leo's reputation as a fighter Bill weighs heavily on his mind, but Chironi maintains his resolve, agreeing to let Leo have the first 3 punches. The duel begins, and Chironi throws a punch with full force, but even with his initial advantage, he quickly realizes how much stronger Leo is. His shots are easily blocked, and the power behind Leo's defense leaves Chironi struggling to keep up. Chironi throws another blow with more effort than before, but when the wooden swords collide, they break with a loud bang. Both wooden swords break with a sharp crack, and the sound echoes throughout the library. It surprises both of them, but it is Leo who is most amazed. He never expected such power from Chironi, who just a few moments ago seemed like an underdog in this duel. Leo freezes for a moment, unable to process what just happened. After a few moments of stunned silence, he finally asks Chironi how he managed to hit with such force. Chironi, always direct, explains that the power behind his stroke does not come from fencing or training with a sword. He tells Leo that it comes from a skill he learned when he was young, when his father taught him to chop wood. At first, Chironi struggled with the task, unable to split the logs no matter how hard he tried. But through persistence, he discovered what he now calls beaten thunder, a blow that channels all its energy into a single powerful movement. Although he has only used this technique to chop firewood, Chironi has practiced it for years, perfecting the skill, until it became second nature to him. Leo listens, still struggling to believe what Chironi just told him. He feels a mixture of disbelief and shame. How could he, a noble son, be surpassed in such a way by someone who had no formal training? He had been so sure of his own superiority and swordsmanship, and yet here was Chironi, someone with no fencing background, making a fool of himself in such a humiliating way. This feeling of shame provokes something deep inside Leo. It awakens a memory from his childhood, one that has haunted him for years. When he was young, one of his brothers had defeated him in a duel, a fair fight, and that left a lasting mark on him. That defeat in front of his father changed everything. Leo's father, Leoant, always seemed to favor the other children, and from that moment, Leo felt that he could never measure up. His brothers, each with their own specialized talent, always seemed to overshadow him, but Leo had never discovered his own strength, his own special gift. This lack of identity, of something to be proud of, had left him with a feeling of inadequacy that still lingered. The Owent family, known for their distinctive blue and black hair, had 4 sons, 3 boys, and a daughter. The eldest son had black hair, the daughter and Leo had blue hair. Each of his brothers had found his vocation, his talent, something in which they could excel. But Leo was still unsure of his place, and that uncertainty had only deepened over the years. Especially after that defeat in front of his brother. Feeling the weight of his own frustrations and inadequacies, Leo suddenly changes his attitude. He pulls a real steel sword from his shield and throws it at Chironi, declaring that he will not surrender. Just because the wooden swords broke, he insists that the duel is not over. Chironi may have won this round, but Leo won't accept defeat so easily. He is determined to continue and says that in exactly 1 month they will face each other again. Leo wants a rematch, one in which he can prove to himself, and perhaps to Chironi, that he's not just an easy-to-defeat noble son. Although Leo tries to explain that he has never used a sword before, his arrogance prevents him from really listening to Saron's words. He doesn't want to acknowledge the truth in Saron's statement. The two separate, and Chironi, determined not to be outdone, begins devouring all the books on fencing he can find. He focuses on learning fast techniques, knowing that although he may never be as strong as Leo, he can use his knowledge to level the playing field in his next duel. At Leo's next training session with his teacher, he follows orders and puts everything he has into every move. His effort is so intense that his teacher notices that something is not right. Leo's strength has increased dramatically, but there is something disturbing about his behavior. When his teacher asks him what is going on in his mind, Leo denies that there is anything wrong, but his actions say otherwise. Leo continues to put more pressure on himself than before, and his performance becomes so powerful that his teacher worries about the risk of him getting injured, breaking bones, or straining his muscles. Fearing for Leo's safety, his teacher stops the training and demands that he reveal that he is bothering him. Despite the pressure, Leo keeps silent, not wanting to explain his inner torment. His teacher, recognizing Leo's potential, but also understanding that he needs more than just brute strength, advises him to look for other techniques or skills outside of fencing. He encourages him to find something that complements his sword skills, something that shows that he is striving to reach beyond his current limitations. Leo thanks his teacher for the advice, acknowledging that it is the best advice he has received in years. Although Leo admits that he is not very skilled with a sword yet, he vows to train with such dedication that no one will be able to defeat him in the future. Leo deeply believes in his teacher's words about the importance of achieving everything in life through hard work and dedication. Chironi, on the other hand, immerses himself in the study of the 6 most important sword techniques of the greatest swordsmen who have ever existed. He is determined to make the most of his time in the city and take the opportunity to experience the real world. He has promised himself to do everything possible to become stronger, understanding that every moment is valuable. Through his training, Chironas realizes that there is a striking similarity between the worlds of fencing and magic. Both are infinite by nature. Fencing and magic have no end, always leaving room for improvement. Chironi practices with a real sword, channeling all his concentration into anticipating his opponent's next move. He uses his ability to enter the spiritual realm to sense and predict the flow of the battle. Over many days, Chironi hones his skills, gradually improving his understanding and technique. Meanwhile, Leo's focus is completely on victory, practicing out of pride rather than deeper understanding. The month passes quickly, and the time for your grief comes. It's night when they start, and despite Chiron's calm exterior, Leo is worried. He looks at Chironi and notices how he holds the sword without the usual composure of a skilled swordsman. Leo briefly wonders if Chironi is telling the truth about never having used a sword before. His ego drives him to believe that he will win, but he can't shake the doubt that's starting to invade his mind. In contrast to his first impressions, Leo feels a strange calm coming from Chironi. Leo, driven by his need for revenge, steps forward confidently, determined to prove that his training has prepared him to defeat Aroni. But when he attacks, he is surprised at how unexpectedly calm Aroni remains. His posture is not what Leo expected from someone who has never wielded a sword, as he is dodging the blows Leo throws at him, all thanks to his knowledge of fencing. His skill in the spiritual realm also helps him to detect which blow will come next. When Leo sees that Chironi is blocking and dodging all his attacks, he changes his technique so that every blow he throws at Chironi weakens him. Although Chironi can still guide the blows, he plans to tire him out, believing that, once Chironi weakens, he will easily win the duel. But what Leo doesn't know is that even though Chironi is getting weaker, he doesn't waste energy hitting back or let his emotions take over and accelerate his defeat. Just when Leo thinks he has exhausted Chironi, he is shocked to see Chironi attacking him. Although it seems like a normal attack, Leo does not think it will be a problem for him, but what he sees next is completely different. During their fight, Chironi realizes that Leo is only relying on his physical strength and is swinging his sword without precision. This means that Leo does not truly understand the art of fencing. Even when Leo begins to use more strength, Chironi remains calm, recognizing that mental ability or skill in fencing is more important than brute strength. To defeat Leo, Chironi knows exactly what he must do. He knows that, if his physical strength is not enough, he must rely on his technique to deliver the decisive blows. However, as Aroni sees Leo lose focus and become more desperate, memories of his childhood resurface. He remembers how his parents praised his opponents, mostly relatives, every time he was defeated as a child. The thought of losing again is unbearable. He cannot accept it, especially since it was he who started the fight, and set the date. To lose now would mean disgrace to him and his family name. Driven by these thoughts, Leo fights like a madman, swinging his sword without control or awareness of where he is going. Even Aroni, who is using her skill in the spiritual realm, can no longer detect Leo's punches. This continues for a few minutes, where both try to do their best not to lose against each other. Although there is nothing promised between them about what will happen to the person who loses. The worst thing any of them could lose, besides getting hurt, is their reputation or their ego. With all his swords thrown haphazardly, Leo manages to hit Chironi in the chest, cutting through his clothes, but not deep enough to make him stop fighting. The fight continues until one of them falls to the ground, making a normal sound. The whole place is silent for the first 2 minutes, which indicates a sign of victory for the one who still has his sword. It is Leo's sword that falls to the ground while he swings it disorderly. The next hit he thinks Chironi will take is not what he expects. Chironi changes his grip mid-movement, and, before Leo realizes what is happening, he sees his sword on the ground. For Chironi, this becomes a concern, as he has defeated a noble twice in a row. He stands there, thinking about what might happen to him now. Then he finally speaks, asking Chironi to kill him to honor the culture of mourning. Chironi can't believe what he's hearing and tells him that he won't live to see tomorrow if he manages to kill him. He tells Leo that everything is his fault from the very beginning, for trying to bring him, a servant, to death, saying that he should have followed his loyalty over his instructor's instructions. Leo yells back, insisting that I should have been loyal to him and explaining everything, including what I could and couldn't do. But after so much serious conversation, what makes Leo believe him the most is when he sees Chironi sitting on the floor crying, saying that he didn't want this and that he never planned for it to happen. Leo, seeing him, is speechless about what to say next. He decides to make him his friend because, according to Leo, although Chironi defeated him, he does not make fun of him like his brothers, with whom he usually fights. He knows that although he doesn't have Chironi's strength, he realizes that he makes up for the lack of strength and understanding. Or he just decides that he is a genius. As the two introduce themselves to each other, their friendship begins. It has been a year since Chironi started working in the big house of Odi. He has managed to classify more than 7,000 books out of more than 10,000. The master of the house is very proud of him, and Chironi is also proud of himself, trying to read almost all the history books he promised to finish. Now he does it faster, reading between 2 and 3 books a day, enjoying it because he believes it strengthens his knowledge while reading. Since the last time they fought, they have become close friends. Leo now spends his free time with him to keep him company in the library. All this makes them like each other more, as they often ask each other about any topic they choose in the library. Chironi always begs Leo to be kind to the books, warning him that he, Chironi, could lose his life if any of them get ripped. But Leo always assures him that his life is worth more than a book and that he will always protect him if something bad happens. However, Chironi seems to be more worried as the amount of times he sees Leo with him increases, causing him to ask why Leo isn't training like he used to. Leo replies that although he only has a few basic training lessons left, whenever he tells his teacher that he is going to the library to study, his teacher always lets him go. This causes Ron to yell at him, saying that if he really comes to read at the library, he should be reading. But Leo finds it difficult to read books with pictures or combat diagrams, always saying that they get bored. On one occasion, he asks Chironi that since he is becoming a magician as he wishes, he doesn't think he really needs to read all the books he claims to have read. Chironi replies that he needs to cover or know everything a magician knows to be a magician, and everything a scholar knows to be a good scholar. While they are having an argument one day about who they think could win between a magician and a swordsman, Lee suddenly appears behind them. Immediately, Leo stands up to greet him, wondering if he has been listening to their conversation. But Lee is more interested in his argument, saying that a swordsman will always win over a magician, ensuring that they can see in their immediate environment the positions or authorities that both have. Leo disagrees with him on this point, and then Lee asks them to justify this opinion, asking what they think. Chironi supports the idea that the magician will win, but before he can explain his reason, Lee tells him directly that he is wrong. Immediately, Leo sees where Lee's anger is coming from. It's Lee who always makes him angry, because with Lee's rule, everything he says or does is for the best. Never considering other people's perspectives, always trampling on what he thinks is right. As Lee is about to leave, he turns to Leo and tells him that although a severely mage could enter his spiritual realm to fight, a swordsman would easily win if he has the armor of sin with him. It is an artifact that is anti-magic by nature. As soon as Saren hears the word anti-magic, she realizes that she hasn't been studying it as much as she should. He's been too focused on the magical side, as if that's just going to help him achieve his goal of becoming a complete magician. With aspirations of mastering academic skills, some fencing and magic, he knows that he must do everything that is asked of him. He goes on to explain the phenomenon to the group, saying that fighting a magician who has entered the spiritual zone is like fighting a whale in the ocean, but with the help of an anti-magic artifact. It is possible to counter any magic they cast, even from the spirit realm. If one gets close enough, their magic becomes completely ineffective. Lee, who seems to be a history buff, enthusiastically joins the discussion. He tells them that the anti-magic artifacts are made of dragon hearts, which makes them extremely expensive. A single armor of sin artifact costs as much as a year of the country's budget, he says, and its price is not fixed. It fluctuates according to demand. That's why only the extremely wealthy can afford it. The group is shocked when Lee adds that the first anti-magic artifact was created by a wizard. Leo, skeptical, shakes his head, incredulous. But Lee goes on to explain that the magician was driven by greed and the desire to surpass his peers. This revelation irritates both Lee and Leo, who call the wizards pathetic for creating something that could be used against their own kind. But Chironi, who has been silent for some moments, finally intervenes. He explains that the anti-magic artifact was actually developed by a wizard from the Mages Association to balance world power. Their purpose was not only to counter the magic, but to ensure that no side could dominate. It is even used in magician schools to discipline students or in forbidden areas of magic to enforce rules. Lee, who usually looks down on Leo, feels that he has been taught a lesson and humiliated. Frustrated, he can't take the conversation anymore and leaves, muttering angrily. Leo, for his part, can't hide his smile. For once, someone has managed to put Ollie in his place, and it feels like a personal victory. Chironi enjoys how Leo has managed to make him lose his ego, even though Leo has never wanted this to happen. 6 months later, when the newly relocated library is finally organized, with the sorting of the books completed 6 months earlier than planned, the library master admires his achievement. His assistant suggests that perhaps it would be better to extend his contract in some form at the library. Leo bursts through the door screaming as he approaches Chironi that he has heard that all the books in the library are finally sorted. Chironi replies that he has also managed to read all the history books he had planned. He then surprises Leo by asking if he could visit his house before they split up. Leo is surprised. After being friends for almost a year, he admits that he had been waiting for Chironi to ask. She accepts and takes him there, assuring him not to worry as everyone is out and won't be back until the evening. Walking down the hallway of the house, they arrive at Leo's room, the smallest since he is the youngest in the family. The room is messy, as you would expect from guys his age. However, it is filled with an impressive collection of swords, from wooden to steel. After exploring the house, they return to Leo's room and start playing cards as usual. Chironi wins every round. Frustrated, Leo accuses him of using his spiritual realm abilities. Chironi laughs and explains that he doesn't need those powers, he just watches Leo closely. He advises you to see the whole picture, not just parts of it. Intrigued, Leo asks if such an ability could work in a scheme. Chironi confidently replies that if it works in the spiritual realm, it should work in the scheme as well. Eventually, Leo falls asleep. Chironi picks up a fiction book and says he's tired of reading history by now. As she walks down the hall, she hears the sound of a piano. He knows that only 2 people in the area play the piano, and one of them is Leo's sister. Curious, he pokes his head out the door, not realizing that she has already noticed him. When he asks her if she likes his way of playing, Chironi replies surprised that yes. She introduces herself and asks him who he is. Chironi explains to her, and she praises him for his diligent work at the library. He then asks her if she has ever played the piano. When he admits he doesn't, she insists on teaching him. Chironi remembers what Leo told him about her, that she is mean and short-tempered, but decides not to let herself be discouraged. She invites him to sit next to her, and he decides to see how far this unexpected moment takes them. Chironi feels surprised and somewhat reluctant to sit down with her, but she assures him that there will be no problem, since she has given him permission to join. With her security and the opportunity to sit at a piano, something she doesn't know when she'll find again, she finally accepts, albeit hesitantly. She starts by explaining what each key represents. Chironi, being who he is, knows that the only thing he needs to focus on is making sure the feeling is right. After listening carefully, he asks if he can try playing with the little she has taught him. To his amazement, his attempt is not only acceptable, but, although not perfect or of expert level, his playing is impressive for someone playing a piano for the first time. Lena applauds, genuinely surprised by his talent. He hasn't finished playing when Leo bursts into the room, screaming in frustration because his sister has woken him up. But as soon as he sees Chironi at the piano, he stands still, not knowing what to say. Chironi apologizes for interrupting Leo's break, but Leo immediately demands to know how Chironi knows his sister. Chironi calmly explains what happened. Leo then introduces her to Ina, explaining how the two have been good friends for over a year. Chironi turns to Leo and asks him why he painted his sister as the most unfriendly person in the family. While the two boys are talking, Lena silently watches Chironi, wondering how someone like him, a peasant, can behave so well and be so handsome. Finally, he asks Chironi how he managed to play so well. He dismisses him, saying it's just common sense, but Leo interrupts, warning Chironi not to be fooled by Lena's kindness, calling her a witch. Lena thanks Chironi for being a good friend to her brother, mentioning that Leo is still immature. Then he looks at Chironi and comments that he is quite adorable. Leo, in response, jokes that if she likes him so much, she should marry him. Ignoring the taunt, Chironi turns the question around and asks Lena why she's at home, especially since no one else was supposed to be there. She explains that she is there to help Leo prepare for school tomorrow, as he will complete his certification, a system designed for both swordsmen and magicians. Leo and Lena explain to Chironi how competitive the certification exams are. The number of candidates selected each year is incredibly small compared to the thousands trying to apply. Although certification can be obtained by accumulating points through the guild or graduating from a magic academy, after reaching a certain level, the prestige of passing the exam directly is incomparable. Leo emphasizes that, despite the unofficial routes, most people prefer to pass the exam properly because of the money and fame that comes with it. Lena adds that Leo will take the exam at the young age of 18, while gently touching him on the shoulder. She reassures him, telling him that he should not worry, that his time will come too. Then, making her way to Chironi, she makes her way to the kitchen, casually mentioning that she would love to see him again as she walks away. Chironi asks Leo if his sister has a boyfriend. Without hesitation, Leo runs into the hallway and screams loudly, asking his sister if she is single. Before he can finish, Chironi pulls him back, covering his mouth in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Mr. Louis Janus, two members of the household, observe the commotion from a nearby room, silently noting down everything that is said. Later that afternoon, Leo is training with his teacher Kate, who is thoughtful, planning how to help Leo refine his skills in the scheme. When a servant quickly approaches, saying that Lena wishes to see Leo urgently, Leo is reluctant at first, but when the servant mentions Chironi, he immediately asks his master's permission to leave, promising to apologize later to his father for Chironi's sake. Meanwhile, Chironi is being escorted to the front of the family. The atmosphere is tense as the head of the family coldly announces the death penalty for Chironi. It's the day Chironi is due to leave the mansion, but it has come to the head of the family's ears that Chironi, a peasant, has been associating with nobles, specifically Leo and Lena. At that moment, Lena is sitting next to her father, watching everything in silence. Lena, deeply worried, tries to convince her father to reconsider, feeling that there is something more locked up than he knows. She thinks there is something her father should understand about, but her pleas are ignored. The head of the family is fixed in the butler's report, with several servants testifying about Saron's repeated visits and his close relationship with the children. Despite the tension, the head of the family gives Chironi the opportunity to talk. Chironi, still kneeling, does not beg for mercy. Instead, he calmly points out that he and Leo have been friends for more than a year, and during that time, no harm has happened to either of them. He challenges the idea that his friendship is a threat to someone. Lena watches Chironi, feeling a sense of pride. Even in the face of death, he remains true to his beliefs and loyal to Leo. She hopes that one day she will also have a friend like him, someone who values kindness and loyalty above all else. Meanwhile, the butler and the servants who have testified against Chironas whisper to each other, surprised by his refusal to beg for his life. They wonder why he insists on defending their friendship instead of begging for mercy. The head of the family, enraged by Chiron's defiant calm, orders him to be dragged away. The penalty for their actions will be death, and no one will talk about it outside those walls. Lena protests, but father is firm, insisting that the family's reputation must be preserved. Even the slightest disturbance, such as Saron's friendship with Leo, must be handled quickly and quietly. To avoid tarnishing his noble name, two guards take Chironi and drag him towards the exit. Just before they reach the door, Leo bursts into the room, his fury evident as he tries to stop them. He argues, but his father remains motionless, insisting that the association of a nobleman with a peasant is a weakness that could harm the status of the family. The head of the family believes that allowing such a friendship to continue would be a disgrace to his legacy. Leo stands holding the sword that his master Kate gave him. His father asks him a difficult question, demanding proof that Chironi is not just using him for his own benefit. Leo knows that this is no longer just an argument, it's a test, a battle between him and his father, and everything is at stake. Just a few moments ago, Leo had been with his teacher Kate, who warned him about the importance of reputation in noble families. Kate told him that extending his hand to someone like Chironi could bring problems, but Leo refuses to abandon his friend. He remembers the passion he felt when he was training to beat Chironi, and now that passion drives him to defend Chironi, no matter what. Kate, seeing Leo's determination, hands him a sword and tells him that he must use it if he really believes in his decision. Back to the present, Leo looks at the sword in his hand and laughs softly. He knows he can't beat his father in a match, but that doesn't matter. What matters is your belief in yourself. She tells her father that their friendship is real, built on trust, not status or reputation. It's a belief he holds steadfastly, no matter what his father says. Her father is furious. He accuses Chironi of cheating on his son and tries to force him to admit that their friendship is wrong, but Leo stands firm, saying that he would rather abandon his family than renounce his friendship with Chironi. Chironi, calm and willing to face whatever comes, tells the family that he knew the consequences when he accepted Leo's friendship. He is willing to face death for them if necessary. The servants watch in silence, moved by the loyalty and bravery they see in Leo by Chironi. They understand that what they are witnessing is a true friendship, stronger than anything that society or family can break. Suddenly, Grandpa's voice echoes from the upper floor. He comments that it has been a long time since he saw something like this, calling it the joy of youth. Lena is the happiest person in the room. He feels that things will turn out well now that his grandfather is back. His father is surprised to see him here at this hour and asks him why he is present. The grandfather explains that he went to visit a friend, but had to return because his friends seemed to enjoy his new wife's company more than his, so he returned home. Chironi is surprised to see Clam for the first time. He is a well-known man, the former head of the family, and the general of Toria. He is a level 3 swordsman and looks to be in his 30s or 40s, tall and fit. He sits on a chair and says he is excited about what is happening. Leo's father asks him why he's excited, especially since the family's reputation is crumbling. Clan responds that although the dignity of the house is at risk, he enjoys seeing how loved is wrong. She is impressed by how people seem to like her despite the situation. Grandpa takes control of the situation. She calls all her grandchildren to talk, starting with the eldest, Lena. She says she supports both Leo and Chironi, although she only met Chironi the day before. He sees that he is a very talented person with many good qualities and disagrees with his father's decision to kill him. Then it's Lee's turn. He calls Chironi a fool, which makes his father happy, because at least someone is supporting his side. But then Lee goes on to say that what Chironi and Leo are doing doesn't concern him. Although he doesn't like Chironi, he simply wants things to take their course so that his sister can take him to the palace for his exam. In other words, Lee is neutral on the situation. The grandfather enjoys watching everything that happens with a smile and turns to Mr. Toron, the third witness, asking him to speak, even though he knows it's not his place to intervene. Mr. Toron says he's been watching Chironi since his arrival. She sees him as a hard-working guy and mentions all the things Chironi has done for the nobles. When asked about his friendship with Leo, Mr. Toron admits that he did not know that they could become friends. But he believes that Chironi has no bad intentions towards Leo. The servants and the head of the servants who brought the case tried to silence Mr. Toron, but Lena is happy to hear everything. It seems that the tide is turning against his father, who is now the only one who continues to insist on punishing Chironi. The grandfather listens to everything that is said and finally disagrees with the rest. The room falls silent as he explains his decision. Although Leo and Chironi have become friends, Grandpa insists that their friendship should end here today. He says that he will not punish Chironi for having introduced the friendship, but makes it clear that the reputation of the house and the family's position in the government are too important. He uses Lee as an example, saying that if such rumors spread, Lee could face discrimination during his exams at the palace. The grandfather asks Chironi if he agrees to end the friendship, but after thinking for a long time, Chironi refuses. He says he would rather walk away, but he will never give up his friendship with Leo. Leo is surprised and tears fall from his eyes. He remembers what his teacher Kate had told him before he came here. Leo then raises the sword in his hand. Before he can say anything else, his sister begs him not to, but Leo moves on. He sticks the sword into the ground, declaring that, from this day on, it will serve Chironi and will be known as the Sword of Chironi. Everyone is shocked, and a bit of shock follows as the family reacts to this unexpected statement. What Leo just did is a big deal. It's a practice that dates back to the early days of the kingdom, when little kings formed alliances with the main king, through something called the Knight Oath. This oath was a long-standing tradition that noble families have respected ever since. Even Leo's master, who gave him the sword, is speechless, knowing that he has caused an unexpected problem. Grandpa doesn't waste any time. He stands up and tells Chironi to take care of his son. He orders the servants to bring Chiron's parents to explain everything that has happened. Grandpa says that since Leo and Chironi have sworn to be the best friends for life, there's nothing more that can be done about it. Inside Leo's room, Leo is happy. He feels that he managed to convince them. He says he has no regrets about swearing allegiance to Aroni. Their sister enters the room and tells them about the family's next plan. They will both be sent to a private fencing school. This means that Chironi is officially part of the family now. At first, Leo does not like the idea of going to school, but his sister explains to him that it is the situation that has befallen them and that they must accept it. He then tells Lena that Chironi really wants to be a magician. He is not a godfather. Lena laughs and says that it looks like Chironi was defeated by a magician. This causes both Lena and Chironi to laugh and send Leo out of the room. Lena sits down and asks Chironi to explain how he managed to beat Leo. Chironi tells him that whenever he is in the spiritual realm, his senses are sharpened, allowing him to predict Leo's next move. He then mentions that he has heard that the spiritual realm can increase a person's power based on their concentration. As he is about to leave, he looks at Chironi and wonders if he will ever have a girlfriend, seeing him shy that he is when she speaks. He decides to help convince his grandfather about Chiron's wishes, but makes it clear that that will not prevent them from attending fencing school. He also tells Leo that his teacher Kate has terminated her contract with him the day before. Later, Chiron's parents arrive, and the servants call him Maestro as he rushes downstairs. He is surprised and tells them that it is okay to call him by his first name only, but they insist that they cannot risk losing their heads. When he opens the door to the reception area, he sees his parents. They hug him tightly, showing how much time has passed since they last saw each other. Chironi notices that they seem much thinner than before and wonders if they have been going hungry. Fearing that they thought he would not come back alive, but his parents assure him that it is only because of his age, and that they have been eating well. He explains everything that happened between him and Leo, the son of the noble family. His father struggles to believe that a nobleman would do something like sponsor a peasant, and even wonders if Chironi is being coerced. His wife intervenes, telling him to stop doubting their son, and that she believes what Chironi is saying. As they continue to catch up, the servants announce that the master of the house has arrived. He enters with Lena and Leo, and everyone introduces themselves, starting with the master of the house. Each of them mentions his position. Chiron's parents quickly stand up, showing great respect, bowing their heads in greeting. Without further introductions, the housemaster asks if your child has told them everything that is going on. Chiron's father screams in disbelief, confirming that it is true. Now they are at dinner, and Chiron's parents are allowed to sit with them as one family. It is the first time their parents have eaten such a meal, but they manage to manage it with the help of the servants, who teach them how to use the utensils correctly. When they finish eating, Chiron's father thanks them for their support during all this time. He asks them to confirm everything their son has told them, just to make sure it's exactly as he said. The housemaster then tells them about the plan to send the fencing school to Aronius, but they will not pay for any of the expenses. However, they will allow you to use your honorary title. They also discuss the possibility of Chironi becoming a magician, explaining that the best way to do it quickly is to attend one of the top 5 magic schools. With his reputation, they don't expect it to be a problem for him to get in, and if he graduates, he will officially become a magician. Chiron's parents can't believe what they're hearing. Does it seem like an illusion to you that someone like him can become a magician? The house teacher explains that the real challenge is to get Chironi into such a prestigious school. To use your honorary title, you will need to sign a document declaring you as an opponent, even if it is only on paper. This will ensure that he will not face any problems when he arrives at school. They reassure Chiron's parents that they are not taking their child away from them. Chiron's father Vincent is speechless. He doesn't know what to do with the pen and paper in front of him. To his surprise, Chironi stops him, holding his hand and saying that he will not let his parents sign something like that. He declares that he will always be his son. Chironi says he won't go, even if it means losing his dream of becoming a magician. He chooses to remain a peasant, despite his grandfather's efforts to convince him otherwise, arguing that a peasant cannot become a magician. Chironi responds that his ability to read and be where he is today is thanks to his parents, who taught him to read. He insists he doesn't want to lose his roots. Chiron's father Vincent immediately kneels down and begs Chironi to be adopted, but Grandpa insists that his opinion must be considered to make such an important decision. Suddenly, Vincent declares that Chironin is not his biological son. His wife tries to stop him as much as she can so that he does not tell the story of how they found Chironi in the stable. But finally, he says that he is sure that Chironi is of noble lineage. He believes that the best thing is to adopt him and return him to where he really belongs, among the nobles. Everyone, including Grandpa, is shocked by what Vincent just said. The master of the house realizes that it's true. Chironi looks nothing like his parents. Now his parents are giving him up, but Chironi is fighting with them, asking them why they would say something like that without telling him first. Vincent tells him that he doesn't want Chironi to give up his dream for him. He thinks it's better for Chironi to know the truth now that he's older. Chironi says he has known since he was little that being handed over to the family or aunt means they are abandoning him, just like his real parents did. Being adopted would mean having a total of 6 parents in your lifetime. Tears roll down everyone's faces as Chironi speaks. It's an emotional moment. The housemaster thinks of another way for Chironi to enter the prestigious Althea school without losing both of his parents. He remembers that his grandfather has a relationship with the owner of the school. The grandfather confirms this, saying that although it may be difficult to convince the man, The school principal owes him a favor, so it is best to use him now by Chironi. He warns that Chironi will be stubborn if he decides not to give in. With the help of the house teacher, Chironi parents can stay until the third day, when preparations are made for the children to leave for their respective schools. When the third day comes, Leo is outside the carriage crying. He feels that the school is separating them, even though they both chose the same school. Leo's admission letter arrives first, which means Chironi won't be able to attend until next year, if his letter arrives by then at all. Leo tells her that they will see each other during the holidays and write letters to each other. He tells Chironi that he must make sure he becomes a magician, no matter what situation he finds himself in. Finally, when they separate, Leo keeps calling Chiron's name as the carriage drives away. Lena says she loves the way he sticks to his ideals. He wants to tell her something, but then he realizes that once Chironi graduates, he will be in a world of magic. The grandfather or entity is at school trying to convince the principal about Chiron's case, even reminding him of the favor he owes him. However, the teacher, an older man, plays hard to get. Grandpa Ont convinces him by describing how good Chironi is and how he reminds him of himself when he was younger. Finally, the teacher agrees and asks him why Se Ronan has not applied as a normal student. Grandpa Owen explains that Se Ronan is not of noble lineage, but the teacher asks if the boy has blonde hair and blue eyes. Grandpa Owen is surprised by the description and asks the teacher if he has seen him before. He says no, but something comes to mind. He tells the school principal how he was able to convince him and his family to like him and how he rejected his proposal when he was offered to become a noble. The maestro says that this means that Saren understands the law of nature, cause and effect, and that even being a great fencing master, he knows that such knowledge Chironi is rare. The teacher also says that Chironi reminds him of himself when he was little because he also never gave himself when he was young. Both of them keep talking about their past, saying that the teacher never wanted any child to be like him when he was younger. So he built a school to guide people talented in magic, so that they do not follow the wrong path. He tells Grandpa Owen about the future of the country, saying that they will really need someone like Chironi. The teacher finally admits that he had seen Chironi before, when he was 4 years old, and Grandpa Owen says that maybe it is fate, that Chironi has relearned under his tutelage. The teacher says that, although he does not believe in fate, what he believes most is in the law of cause and effect. Finally, he accepts that it was social class that prevented him from accepting Chironi when he first came. But now that Chironi has returned to him, he will accept him at school. After 3 months, it's spring. Chironi is getting ready to go to school. He visits his parents out of town first. They both hug him tightly, telling him how proud they are of him. Even the grandfather or aunt asks them to come and live in the city, offering them one of his free houses. His parents do not tell anyone in the village about his admission to the magic school, which will be called Town City. Chironi gets into the carriage and heads to school. Finally, he arrives at the school, a massive house built one on top of another, adorned with many decorative statues. Mr. Tamura, who has accompanied him there, tells him that all his admission fees and whatever he needs will be paid in due course. All he has to do is study hard enough to make his parents proud. There are other students around Chironi who are his age, also coming to school for the first time. As they gather, Chironi leans in to thank Mr. Tamura. Mr. Tamura smiles and comes over to tell Chironi a secret to help him survive at school. He warns him that since he is not noble, others are likely to try to thwart him. He tells Chironi to ignore them, because this opportunity to attend such a prestigious school is a rare opportunity, 1 in a million. Mr. Tamura guides Chironi through the school hallways as they make their way to the register. The school is known as the Cradle of Genius, a place where only the best succeed. Entering the hallway, Mr. Tamura tells Chironi to wait for someone to come get him. While waiting, Chironi looks at the school's bulletin board. It lists about 30 older students at the higher level, but only 10 of them graduated last year. This gives Chironi an idea of how difficult school will be. Suddenly, someone touches him from behind. It's the teacher, the same man she met before. They recognize each other immediately, and Chironi thanks him for all the lessons he gave him when Chironi was younger. Now that she is 17, the teacher begins to show her around the school, reminding Chironi that she will have to take an entrance exam. This test will determine which class you belong to. Chironi admits that he hasn't learned much yet, but the teacher reassures him that as long as Chironi can enter the spiritual realm, he will be fine. They walk through the first set of classrooms, which are for the youngest students, from Class X to Class 8. In these classrooms, students practice basic magic, using it for things like their costumes and small tasks. Chironi is amazed at how focused and skilled they are at such a young age. Then they head to the next set of classrooms, from Class 7 to Class 4, which are for the more advanced students. These students are older and their studies are much more complex. The conversations in these classrooms are filled with chatter about everything from chemistry to electricity, and no one seems to care what everyone else is doing. Chironi quickly realizes that he has entered a completely new world, one where students are serious, smart, and focused on their own goals. The teacher takes Chironi to the school's bulletin board, where they rank the best students from the advanced classes. One name stands out: Amy Kara's. She's at the top of the list. What surprises Chironi is how, despite the fact that many students have similar skills, one person still manages to stand out from the others. That's when Chironi decides that he also wants to be the best student in his class. While she is still thinking about this, Amy Kara's passes by with her friend running after her, asking her to wait. Chironi calls her name, but as soon as Amy hears it, she quickly looks away. He realizes that he has seen her before, when he was little, the first time he used magic. Her friend notices that Chironi is watching her and whispers to Amy that she should check out the handsome new student. Amy, still distracted, says she feels like she's seen him somewhere before. The teacher interrupts his moment and tells Chironi to follow him to where the exam will be held. When they arrive, Chironi sees that there are also young children taking the exam. These children are being evaluated to determine which classes they will be assigned to. The teacher tells Chironi to pay attention to how the examiners ask the questions and, most importantly, to answer them sincerely. This is a practical exam with several examiners grading each participant based on how well they perform as well. When the exam begins, children enter the spiritual realm to demonstrate their abilities. The examiners record their answers and reactions, noting that every year the skills of the participants become stronger. When Chironi's turn comes, the teacher tells him to just be the same and lets him take the place where the questions will be asked. When taking a step forward, all examiners begin to wonder what kind of skill he might have. They know that Chironi is listed on the forms as a guest of the family or on you as a special candidate of the director. The first question they ask him is what he can do with his magic. Chironi responds honestly, saying that he has not learned magic because there was no one to teach him. Then they ask him to enter the spiritual realm. The examiners are relieved that not all students with wealth can perform magic. When Chironi enters the spiritual realm, he begins to see what others have been seeing. Now he can perceive the spiritual world as they do. The first examiner asks him what he sees, but Chironi hesitates at first. The director again reminds him to be honest, explaining that he will not be graded for his answer, but will be placed in the appropriate training class. This reassures Chironi, who slowly responds by saying that the numbers keep getting further and further away. After a brief pause, he finally tells them that he sees the number 314, although he has no idea what it means. The examiners are surprised by his answer. What Erroneous has just described suggests that he is able to see clearly up to 30 meters away, which is far above the standard that they had set for the examination. This ability surprises him, as it shows a level of perception that most students do not possess. Next, they ask you what is the most vibrant color you can see. Chironi replies that it is the blue one, which indicates that he is a swarm, a type of magician with great resistance. The examiner notes that this is the opposite of a clamp, a type of magic user with a different skill set. The director, hearing this, suddenly remembers what his old friend, Clamp, Leo's grandfather, had told him about Chironi. It seems that Chiron's abilities are even more remarkable than what Clamp had described. The examiners then ask him how many monospheres he can see floating around him. Chironi confidently replies that he sees 860 spheres, which is an impressive number. He does not need to explain further, as he can feel the monospheres around him, which is equivalent to the 86.7% of the standard for magic resistance. After the interrogation is over, the students are asked to wait outside, while the examiners deliberate on which class to assign them to. While they wait outside, Chironi stays with the others, but the examiners remain inside, discussing Chiron's abilities in detail. They talk about the use of the amplifier object and the unique way it perceives the vibrating monospheres, which have a higher density than expected. The discussion escalates when Professor Sat suggests that perhaps Aroni was exaggerating or lying about the amount of monospheres he could see. He points out that someone who can't perform magic but somehow sees so many monospheres could be lying, as students typically need significant training and meditation in the spiritual realm for their abilities to manifest and become more visible. A female examiner adds that even if Saren were lying, a student who cannot back up such claims with actual magical ability will not be able to keep up with the class they are placed in. One of the other examiners jokes around asking if Chironi is training to become a monkey, suggesting that his claims might just be attempts at showing off. The debate continues for a while as they try to decide which is the best class for Chironi. Finally, the director enters the room and asks what they have decided. Professor Sat strongly suggests that Chironi should be placed in the fundamental class, where he could receive basic training and develop his skills gradually. However, another examiner, recognizing Chiron's potential, suggests that he should be placed in Class 6, an upper-level class for students who show significant promise. Sat stands by his opinion, arguing that putting Chironi in Class 6 would be a mistake. He believes that being in such an advanced class could inflate Chiron's ego, leading him to become overconfident and causing possible problems with his training. He insists that Chironi should start from the basics and prove his skills through hard work and dedication. After much debate among the teachers, each wanting to train Chironi because of his apparent potential, the room is filled with divergent opinions. Some argue that his natural talent should place him in an advanced class, while others worry that he lacks basic training. The disagreement is interrupted by the voice of an older woman at the back of the room. She calmly suggests that, although Chironi is really talented, he still lacks the fundamental training that would make him truly ready for more advanced classes. He proposes that he should be placed in Class 7, where he can be observed for a while. If his progress is as expected, he could be promoted to a higher class eventually, finding a suitable class that corresponds to his abilities. The principal, after considering the suggestion, agrees with the older woman's assessment and supports placing Chironi in Class 7. The structure of the school is divided into 3 parts, with a total of 10 different classes. Classes 8 are for novice students who are still learning how to enter their spiritual realm, while classes 7 to 4 are for students who are learning the basics of mathematical magic and how to connect with their spiritual zones. The last group, the 3 to 1 classes, consists of the most advanced students who undergo rigorous training to become magicians. These classes are the most difficult to graduate from, with only a small number of students successfully completing the program. The next day, Chironi is introduced to his new class. As he enters, he notices that the students are looking at him, and many of the girls are whispering about how handsome he is. However, some of the other students seem confused and worried. They wonder how someone who didn't start as a rookie could be placed so high in the class rank. Chironi, despite his confusion, is determined to prove his worth. The school itself covers a vast land of about 75 square kilometers, with more than 30 buildings, including dormitories for students. Classes end at 5 p.m. each day, and there are strict rules about staying inside the school grounds during weekdays. Students are not allowed to leave the premises unless given permission, which adds to the rigorous discipline that is required at the school. Finally, he is now in the prestigious uniform of the Alpha School. He realizes that all the classes and jobs are hard, just as expected from the advanced class he was placed in. Even the richest students, who have been studying magic all their lives, still find it difficult to learn easily. But he promises himself that he will not fall behind in any of his studies. After the first class, he asks a girl his age where the location of his next workout might be. The girl, who is also an introvert, tells him that twice a week, all the students of the advanced class train together. When it's time for training, the girl saves a seat for him. As she sits in the crowd, she notices that when Amy, a classmate, enters, all the students start looking at her. It is even divine erroneous that she might be transferred to a higher class soon. He tries to avoid her as much as possible because of their last meeting. Finally, the teacher enters the training room, which is larger than a regular classroom. The teacher, a woman named Itala Romi, will be his exclusive spirit teacher. After introducing himself, he tells Chironi to stand up and introduce himself to his teammates. As soon as he stands up, all the students, especially the girls, start looking at him. When he introduces himself, a round of applause follows, and he is overwhelmed by it. Amy and her close friend are among the students. Her friend points him out, saying that he was the one she mentioned yesterday when the principal was showing her around the school. When Amy looks at him, she knows that she has seen his face somewhere, but she does not remember where. As soon as Chironi finishes introducing himself, there is a sudden spike in Amy's brain activity, and she suddenly remembers how she knows him. Amy Karas, the youngest member of the prestigious House of Karas, belongs to a noble family where change happens quickly and where geniuses abound. However, she stands out among all as she possesses the most exceptional talents. The Karas family is known for their unique ability called Red Eye, which allows them to absorb knowledge effortlessly, making their learning much easier than that of other humans. Amy has always been able to do as she pleases until one day she met a guy in an alley, Chironi. That meeting marked a turning point that led her to return home. Now, as Sammy watches Chironi, he suddenly remembers the boy's face. Her mind races trying to put the pieces together about how and where she met him. She doesn't even notice when she lets go, "What the hell?" and her friends ask her why she said that, but Amy lies, claiming it was just because she was bored. However, when her friends walk away and keep talking, Amy's concern increases. She knows that her brain is not deceiving her, and she cannot get rid of the feeling that Saron's appearance at school is not a coincidence. As he reflects, he begins to wonder how Saroni managed to get into such a prestigious school. From that moment, he mentally classifies him as someone who is not noble. What worries her the most is her past, a past that she never wanted to resurface with Chironi now here. He feels the weight of that past, knowing that he must do something about it. She stares at him, not knowing what to do next, as she recalls the memories that have been buried for so long. It was years ago, when Amy, accustomed to doing what she wanted as a noble, was moving around with thugs, harassing anyone, especially peasants on the roads. One of those peasants was Erroneous, whom he ordered his thugs to rip off his clothes just so he could examine him. But now, since she's been at school, Annie has developed a tough and strong facade, rejecting any man who tries to approach or befriend her. What worries him most is that Chironi might expose his past, a past he deeply regrets. She used to enjoy being surrounded by men, but now, with everything at stake, she fears what Chironi might reveal. Finally, the teacher starts the class, explaining how students can transform their spiritual zones into different shapes to hit a specific target. He proves it by hitting a target in class, to the surprise of many of the students in Class 7. Chironi feels grateful to finally witness real magic being practiced and taught. The teacher refers to this technique as the spiritual zone they remove, which consists of 4 forms: defense, attack, cross, and schisma. Explain each form. For defense, it takes the shape of a diamond. The attack is versatile, allowing a variety of offensive strikes from different angles, while the cross shape allows combat from multiple directions. The final form, schism, is the most difficult, as it is specialized for certain magicians due to its unique nature. The teacher then demonstrates the schism by creating a spiritual realm, and, to everyone's amazement, separates her body from her mind, walking out of her spiritual realm. This revelation astounds the entire class as it challenges their understanding of the mind-body connection. The professor emphasizes that the schism form allows magicians to attack enemies from all directions, making it very effective, but difficult to master. He adds that the students of Class 5 will find it challenging, and that only those who can successfully perform the schism will be able to advance to the next class. After explaining the concepts, the teacher asks for a volunteer to demonstrate any of the ways she has taught. When no one offers, he calls the outstanding student of Class 4, none other than Ami. The moment her name is mentioned, the students, especially the girls, start clapping in admiration, since Amy has always been the one who helps the teacher with the demonstrations. She is known for her humility, making guys look like they know nothing compared to their abilities. However, to everyone's surprise, Annie does not stand up proudly as she usually does. Instead, she hesitates, feeling reluctant to leave her seat. Finally, Annie challenges herself and steps up, demonstrating the cross shape with ease. He hits all his targets in a matter of seconds, and the class erupts in applause. His movements are graceful and elegant, and students sitting behind closed doors whisper to each other, admiring his precision and composure. Some would even wish to be his friend, knowing that they could never match his knowledge and skills. Chironi, however, remains focused on her, his thoughts drifting when he last saw her with the bullies. He wonders how someone of his noble status could have gotten involved in such actions. Amy completes her cross-form demonstration in just 20 seconds, showing off her exceptional skills. When he turns around to return to his seat, he unexpectedly looks at Erroneous. The whole class notices the brief eye contact, and many begin to wonder if they've seen each other before. Chironi, now sure that she is the same girl from his past, confirms it in his mind as their gazes meet. Amy quickly looks away, feeling embarrassed that she even looked at him. She tries to blame it on her nerves, concentrating on getting back to her seat, but deep down, she is worried about how to prevent him from revealing his past. She reassures herself, thinking that, as the best student, no one would believe a newcomer like Chironi above her. Even if he came to speak, the class is then instructed to leave their seats and practice in the center of the room, which is large enough to accommodate everyone. The teacher tells the students in Class 7 to start defensively, while the students in other classes are given different ways to practice. Chironi tries to shape his spiritual zone, and, when he finds it easy, he asks the teacher for permission to use the magic circle, which helps to measure a person's spiritual meter. The teacher, somewhat impressed by his confidence, gives him permission, thinking to herself that Chironi must have guts to ask for this, especially being a student of Class 7.